Welcome back, everyone, to the Fluid Fan Podcast. As always, I am your host, Angela Ruggiero, a four-time Olympian. I bring that up proudly today because the Olympics are wrapping up. And also the CEO and co-founder of Sports Innovation Lab. Hopefully you enjoyed the Olympics. I did. Had a lot of fun. Hopefully you tuned in. But on this podcast, I like to talk about Fluid Fan, the future fan, technology, talk to interesting people, give a perspective that I get every day, which is where's the future of sport headed? So hopefully you will go on this journey with me. But if you were able to tune into the women's ice hockey tournament, congrats to Team USA for your silver, and congrats to Canada. I know they were my rival, but they had a really good tournament. So for all you hockey fans out there, hopefully you enjoyed a great performance by the women's hockey tournament amongst all the other athletes. So transitioning to the podcast and a phenomenal guest. I'm really excited to bring a person in who I've definitely looked up to, someone that has definitely broken barriers and continues to in the sports industry. Laura Gentile, who's the executive vice president, commercial marketing for Disney Networks and ESPN. She's going to join me on the show today to talk about social media, content marketing, digital platforms, women in sport, particularly ESPNW and all the work that she's done there, and so much more. So we'll chat about the power of sport. If you didn't know, now you know. She played field hockey for Duke. She'll talk about her two-time captaincy there and what that really taught her, applying it to the sports industry. I always love talking to former athletes because they bring a little bit to the fold. But she definitely has brought that passion for sports into the business world, used it over 20 years at ESPN, and so was able to launch ESPNW. Spends a lot of time now with Disney, which we'll get into, and is bringing all of these strategies to help the worldwide leader in sports, as they call themselves, ESPN. So let's jump right in. Very exciting interview today with Laura Gentile from ESPN. Welcome to the Fluid Fan Podcast. As you heard, I'm here with the very, very special Executive VP, Commercial Marketing, Disney Networks and ESPN, the one and only Laura Gentile. Laura, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Angela. It's an honor. And I know I rate because you've only had 70 guests before me.
We couldn't get you on. You're just in such high demand.
I'm proud to be your 71st guest.
No, it only means I've perfected the questions. I won't put you on the spot.
Oh yes, you wanted to just smooth it all out.
Yeah, I got to make sure I got all the kinks out before we talk. So that's the goal here. So this will be a good one. But I'm really excited to talk to you. You're someone I've definitely looked up to for many, many years. Someone that is absolutely just doing so many things in the industry across so many different realms, doing tons for women in sports, as you know, I care about. So I'm, again, let me brag about you for a second. And I want to start with like where you came from. But before you began your career in sports, we all know if you Google Laura Gentile, 40 under 40 for SBJ, you're a game changer there as well. You've been appointed to the U.S. Department of State's Council to Empower Girls and Women Through Sport. I know that's been a big passion of yours. But you're an athlete, which I think I always love to key in on those that are athletes, and not just any athlete, an All-American in field hockey at Duke. One of the first, I believe you helped captain and bring them to their first NCAA tournament.
Yes, you were knocking on the door for many years, and then we finally made the tournament.
Tell me about what you learned. I've read some quotes about you, really giving a lot of credit to that, the fact that you were an athlete and obviously working at ESPN now. I'm sure it helps understand what these athletes are going through, but in business, like, tell me about your career as an athlete and what you've learned, a little bit about that experience. Cause I thought that quote, when I was doing my research, was just like so striking. I'm like, oh, no wonder Laura gets it. She's an athlete.
Yeah. I mean, I think it does come down to being competitive, it's an attribute you just sort of learn, right? Like being a little kid and like trying to win in the driveway and trying to win foul shooting contests or playing horse or whatever. So, being an athlete, I think I've always been really competitive. And then obviously at Duke, I kind of channeled that into some real goals, team goals, personal goals. And I think it serves me well in the workplace. Obviously you're not at people's throats, and it's not maybe a capital C competitive, but you're kind of competing every day. You're trying to get your job done. You're trying to do it to the best of your ability. You're trying to beat your competitors in the industry. So that was really formative. And then I think when you mentioned, being a captain and like laughing about getting the kinks out, I think being a captain in sports, you learn all the different ways to lead. And oftentimes in sports, it does go to the person who's most committed or works the hardest or has the most skill. And in the business world, it's not that black and white. And so you have to develop different leadership skills. And it's not just about your output, but it's more about how you motivate people, how you make them feel, how do you get the best out of them. So, being a captain on almost every team of mine, from middle school on to high school into college, I learned a lot of do's and don'ts. I didn't do everything right. And there were definitely moments I should have nipped problems in the bud, and I should have said something to somebody earlier, and I didn't. But I think that was all very helpful training wheels for the business world and my career, to then be put in leadership positions and at least have a sense of what that means and how to mold a team.
Yeah. And maybe you can highlight, again, I love that, because I always think sports is that amazing, beautiful testing ground to learn about yourself, playing in a team in a relatively safe environment. I mean, I hate losing games, but no one's losing their job. It's not life or death. It's a learning opportunity. And your boys play hockey, right? I mean, you're teaching them those lessons.
I have 3 boys, 13, 6, and 4. So the little guys haven't felt the full effects yet, but Will, I pretty much talk to him like a coach, like a leader, like every day. I'm just, after a practice, before a practice, just, we have that kind of banter and give and take. And I've just tried to share all the things that I've learned and philosophies I've ever learned with him.
Well, thanks for putting them into hockey. I mean, I like field hockey, but ice hockey is kind of.
There's something pretty awesome about ice hockey. I don't know how to skate. I should have learned.
Let's go.
I just like to run on grass. I can't really deal with it.
All right, we got to go. Let's go for a skate when I'm in town again.
Okay. You'll leave me in the dust.
No, but I love what you're saying. Just that you've learned to be a leader, and I'm sure that's one of the through your sports experience and now your work experience. You've been with ESPN, and have risen, kind of scaled the ranks, if you will. I'd love for you to share your most recent title, if you will, EVP Commercial Marketing for Disney Networks and ESPN, because if you unpack that, it really, I think, is a testament to all the various roles that you've had in the run up. And, you have an incredibly important position now at ESPN, one of the largest. I mean, everyone knows ESPN. If you don't, I mean, I can brag for you. Well, I want you to do the bragging, because it's just such a big organization, so important to all the conversations I have on this podcast and in the industry in general, and your role there. Walk us through your day-to-day, your life in the shoes of Laura Gentile.
Well, I think one reason I really love it is the variety. I mean, granted, it's sports. So if, there's no topic in the world I enjoy more than sports, but the variety of, leading our marketing team and our social media team, and then my Disney responsibilities with various networks and brands, it literally is every hour. It's kind of different. I could be looking at a rough cut for a new There's No Place Like Sports spot, which is our brand campaign. There's no place like sports. I could be then looking at kind of some social media creative or metrics. We could be talking about fan insights the next hour. We can be talking about the National Geographic brand and where we take that next to be younger and more relevant. So, and then there's, senior staff meetings and things like that. So it's interesting because the day is just very diversified and interesting and varied. And I love that about it. And, then you're talking NHL 1 second, NFL the next, UFC the next, WNBA, talking about how do we continue to elevate women's college sports. So, my day is a mix of strategy, creative, but it's ultimately sports and reaching sports fans.
And curious your mindset, because a lot of what we do obviously is thinking through growth and your strategy. I mean, what you do is really helping to grow the brand. That growth mindset, like the idea that you're constantly having to stay on top of things and understand, like, how do we get more reach? How do we grow our brand? I mean, how important that is to you? How important that is that to the organization as a whole?
It's super important. And, that's kind of the genesis for ESPNW was really about how do we serve women who love sports more deeply? And it really was an audience reach, an audience engagement theory, which is literally 49% of all sports fans are women. And for the longest time, we kind of flew under the radar as like this nice to have audience that may or may not watch if it's a big game. And it's like, no, they're actually real sports fans and they care about their teams, they care about their athletes. And maybe you need to talk to us a little bit differently, but it's not radically different. It's just maybe a little more backstory, maybe a little more context, maybe bring us into the conversation in a different way. So ESPNW is all about reaching women and speaking to women in a new, even more respectful way. And then layer in the notion of women's sports being more in the spotlight and featuring more of those athletes and featuring more of those teams. Because again, largely under the radar, but now we're seeing, 10, 12 years later, wow, Chloe Kim's pretty amazing. And Simone Biles is outstanding. And Caitlin Clark can hit a 3 from, half court, just like Steph Curry. So, the time has come, I think, for women's sports for sure. But a lot of my thinking, I guess, you'd say the last 10 years has really been about audience expansion and how do we get closer to our fans?
Yeah, let's stay with the women's sports theme, because again, I want to brag for you as the founder of ESPNW. I was at the very first summit that you hosted with the Women in Sports Summit at Torrey Pines. I was still an athlete. I remember looking around going, I was so inspired by that, but by those few days that we spent together. And
in that one yoga class we did together, you held plank pose for 7 minutes straight.
Yeah, that was how long ago? Because I can't do that anymore.
No issue. Not a single shake, nothing quivering.
That was when I was training more. I gotta get back on the horse. As long as you want. But you can brag for me, because clearly I'm going to be living in my.
I was like, oh my gosh, she must be an Olympian.
I have 2 kids now, and I don't have time to plank. But thank you. Yes, I used to be able to plank very long. But no, we were together, and that was your vision. That, like, let's do more. To your point of there's a market here. I mean, the Fan Project, all the research we did this year was about showing that data that there is a market. They're hungry. They want it to consume in a different way. And I think you guys were ahead of your time, really fleshing out the stories and really building this platform for women now with ESPNW. Tell me, I'm curious, like the early struggles, because as you said, there is a market. We've shown that with our data, but you were doing this 12 years ago. I think you launched back in 2010. What have been some of the uphill stories, success stories? How did you overcome that? Because there's a lot of listeners, I think, that loved the Fan Project and are like, what do we do?
Sure.
And are eyes wide open that isn't, going to be a turnkey tomorrow solution.
Yeah, I always say, like, being naive served me well, because I was like, this is just a great idea. Like, women, it's a huge audience. Like I said, 49% of all fans are women. So it's not a small audience. It's not a niche audience. And I just we have to go after it. I was just so convinced at the time that this was a growth opportunity for ESPN like none other, frankly, because if you get women, I mean, all the leagues are seeing it now. You get women, Monday Night Football ratings are up. You get women, and Major League Baseball is healthier. And so folks are seeing that, and college football is super healthy because so many women watch. But at the time, I just, I did enough research. I talked to enough people. Being a female athlete helped, because I was like, nobody ever went to my games, especially field hockey. We had 14 people in the stands, and 12 of them were parents. And so you played for the love of the game, but you also knew female athletes are not getting their just due, and these teams aren't being recognized, and these coaches and these leaders aren't being recognized. So there was a lot of, I guess, foundational work done and, to get us to that point. But then once we were on the idea and we wanted to launch a business, it just took a ton of doggedness and persistence, because again, 12 years ago, it was kind of a new conversation, or it wasn't trendy, put it that way. Like now you talk about women in sports and people listen and they're like, yeah, of course, it's kind of the sexy thing to do and support. Whereas 12 years ago, it was a little new. You kind of had to take a little bit of a leap of faith. We certainly had to prove it. So we had to have, sponsors out of the gate. And luckily at the time we had Nike, Gatorade, and P&G, 3 of the best brands you could ever want. And we had to build it, brick by brick. We started on social media. We started with a blog. We started with our events. And then we just started, building some credibility, but really building the case, the business case that women are vital and women's sports is going to have its moment. And it's really something to be embraced and watched.
I love it. All right. I'm giving you some air claps for those listening. I'm giving Laura some air claps because, again, it's leaders like you that had to start those conversations. Are what we're doing, what I'm trying to do with what, the research. It's just like keep pushing that rock up a hill. But I think we're at a tipping point. And curious, you just recently launched That's a W campaign. There's now a W studio. So it sounds like internally it's working. ESPN is investing more, going harder at women in sport. Tell us about what that campaign is all about, what the W studio represents, and kind of the next iteration of where you're headed with this.
It speaks to a number of different things. One is the big thing that's changed in 12 years is there are more women in decision-making roles, right? Like we would hold on tight because when we had conversations at P&G about getting behind ESPNW, we were talking to some really senior female executives and they were listening, like a Julie Edelman. It was awesome. But 12 years later, there's many more women at the table who are in decision-making roles and who could greenlight things and support things and be an ally that has a lot of influence. So That's a W comes from the fact that we have a marketing department at ESPN that believes in the proposition and the fact that we need to herald this. We need to tell these stories. And, the notion of That's a W, that's everything from an actual victory to an amazing performance like Chloe Kim just had, or a moment of inspiration, like Kelly Stafford and Matthew Stafford after, he's going to the Super Bowl. So That's a W is just a way to stamp sort of that inspiration, that feeling, what it means to be basically a woman in sports doing amazing things. But yeah, I mean, the team at ESPN's fabulous. I mean, really led by Jimmy Pitero. I mean, I could not have a better leader in him. He gets it in his soul. He believes in the power of women. He believes in audience growth, and he helps me make it happen. So he's helped greenlight campaigns like that. He's helped greenlight W Studios, which is an opportunity for us to create films by, for, and of women. And the notion of more female filmmakers, more female producers, more women as protagonists in these films. We've done 30 for 30s now for basically 20 years or, close to 20 years, 15, 20 years. And it's, it's a time to just feature more women. And so W Studios is basically our opportunity to tell the stories of women in a beautiful, original film type way.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait for whatever you guys produce. We know that your name and ESPN's name's against it. I do want to give a shout out to Rachel Epstein and all the work we've done with her launching the Women's Sports Executive Network in partnership with you guys at the ESPNW Summit this year. Is an unbelievable opportunity to bring leaders that are trying to make a difference in what Rachel's done there, and just supporting us, supporting women's sports, and that group. Again, she's awesome. So
our W
gave
team.
some love to Jimmy. I was like, you got to give some love to I gotta give some love to Rachel. She's fantastic.
But I mean, the W team now, it's kind of spreads far and wide. It's not just this core little team, it's the entire company. And she's been at the helm for the last few years and really drove W Studios to happen.
Cool. Well, keep it up, Rachel. Pivoting a little bit, you're talking about growth. And one thing that we obsess over at Sports Innovation Lab is this pivot from linear to digital and OTT, and that's your wheelhouse. And so I wonder if you can talk a little bit about just internally, again, the rise of ESPN Plus, and how that really has, since I think it's 3-4 years now, this multi-sport direct to consumer video service, you're over 20 million subscribers. You've definitely been able to, again, distribute all the amazing content you have. Walk me through that shift. Cause again, our industry is all going through it and now trying to figure out growth opportunities, and the digital OTT space is absolutely, where it's at. But with, but there's the linear piece that we all know is still the bread and butter.
Sure.
So walk me through again your role, and also just how you personally and how the company thinks about ESPN Plus specifically.
Well, in some ways it's pretty simple in that it's just another way to reach our fans.
Mm-hmm.
And so it does seem like it's a big swing, but on another way, we've been doing this in our entire existence. ESPN just keeps innovating, whether it was being the first, with high definition television, or being the first, on digital, and being the leader in social. We look at streaming as just like the next frontier for us, the next way to have this incredible catalog of content available for fans, and just another pipeline to give fans what they want in terms of live events. And whether it's cricket or UFC or soccer, just bringing more and more sports and more content to fans. So it is a huge shift for the industry, but I think for us, we just look at it like we've always been finding that next platform. And we've never really found that one platform cannibalizes the next. We just keep creating more and more ways to surround our fans.
Yeah.
So we look at ESPN Plus as a huge opportunity, but it's not too dissimilar from us when we started ESPN.com, or we got involved with the mobile phone. Just another way to reach fans.
Yeah. So great distribution. Again, the Fluid Fan we talk about is they're everywhere, and they want to consume on demand, where they want, how they want, personalized.
Right, exactly.
So this fan, some might be going to, exclusively ESPN Plus. Do you think there's, again, I'm just playing off this, I love it because I go, there's the long tail of sports, think women's sports, cricket. There's sports that just maybe couldn't get on the linear platform, but now have a distribution channel. Do you think there's gonna be greater competition for, the properties now? Because look, they can all be visible, or will field hockey have now an opportunity to shine and grow, and what does it do to the industry in general? You think it makes it more competitive? Because it certainly makes, it's helping the fan find content they love. But I'm curious your perspective on like the sports industry, like how better distribution shakes up like the competition of like your partners.
I think it makes it more competitive, right? I mean, you have folks like Amazon now playing in this arena. You have Apple being interested. You have Googles of the world being interested. So I think it's a new type of competitor.
Yeah.
And it's not, broadcast linear competition as much. It's really who's at the forefront of thinking smartly about how to reach fans.
Yeah.
So again, I feel really confident in our hand because we pretty much have a leadership position in every platform.
Yeah.
But I do think it'll enable new players to get involved. And I do think it's really awesome for fans because hopefully virtually every bit of content that you want is now available to you. Like you said, whether it's a field hockey championship or a college volleyball match, your dynasty, or a college football game that might not ever make it to linear television. And again, on your phone, like where you want it, on the go, at your convenience, just really an extension of your sports fandom.
Yeah. These fans they're open to choose. They're open to change, empowered to choose. They can go anywhere, they can consume anything, but they're constantly evolving. That's one thing we always raise is you think they like one piece of content or one channel, and then they change overnight, and just trying to stay up with that evolving nature is really interesting.
But I think if you look at like just what we've done with the NHL, I just think it's a super innovative deal where you have over 1,000 games on ESPN Plus, but then you have amazing marquee matchups on linear on ESPN, and then you have the Stanley Cup Finals on ABC. It's just our way of reaching as many fans as we can. And back to the great game of ice hockey, bringing hockey to as many fans as possible, whether it's, an older person watching on a broadcast platform that they feel more comfortable with, or somebody watching it in the locker room before their game.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure that was key to the move from NBC, is just that reach and that distribution. Every sport needs to be seen. So good luck growing the sport. It's my favorite one.
No, but really just being at the All-Star game and the skills competition and seeing all this young talent in the league, these 20-year-old, 25-year-old superstars. It's like, we got to bring these personalities to life. We have to show folks what they're all about, and the journey that they've taken, and their style and their fashion sense. And, again, our position on digital, our position on social will help do that, to tell those stories in a different way and bring them to life.
Yeah, maybe you can play on that a little, because you talked about it on the women's side, and we found that in our research, fans of women's sports want way more behind the scenes content and contextualization of these athletes. But that applies across the board, that fans want access before, during, and after. They want to know what these athletes are eating, who they're dating, what are they wearing. I mean, that's just that's just in some ways common sense. Like, you want more than the athlete, you want the entertainer. And you guys were groundbreaking in your body issue, right? Showing these athletes for their full selves and owning their bodies, even if it's not the typical body. And
all shapes and sizes, right?
Yeah, the 30 for 30. Like, let's actually let you appreciate something that's this athlete has gone through, so you can understand them. I mean, we find that fans are dying for that, and they want more of it. So tell me more. You do this every day. I mean, this is what you do for a living. You get it.
Well, like your fluid fan research, we have our corollary to it at ESPN in terms of just creating really vivid fan segments. And so the one we're talking about now is story seekers. It's a huge component of the fan landscape. Story seekers, essentially men and women, fairly equal distribution, who want to go deeper, who want to know more. The folks who love 30 for 30. The folks who, Emily Kaplan creates a great piece on Jack Hughes, and they're like, yeah, that's what I want. I don't know who this kid is, and I kind of thought he was like some young brash guy, and now I know has two pretty awesome parents, and he just grew up sleeping and breathing hockey, and he's pretty fun, and he wants to change the game, and he's like a regular kid, but then also a crazy sniper on the ice. And that 12-minute story is what story seekers want to know and want to see.
I love it. Yeah, I saw that piece actually. I was like, man, that guy's fun. I want more of him.
Right?
Yeah. That was
living
really
in Hoboken and
love it. Emily's a great reporter, by the way. I love her too. Good shout out. I mean, I'm just obsessed with the how do we understand what these fans want that aren't just the diehards that adopt, the generational fandom, and they never leave the same city. These are like global citizens now that, you need to, you in your role have to create storylines and packages and market to differently. And
the other segment that we talk about a lot is new schoolers, the folks who pretty much consume almost entirely on digital and social. So you can't not serve that audience. You can't just say, watch TV, watch SportsCenter at 6 o'clock.
What do you call them? New schoolers?
Yeah.
Nice.
You got to serve them in different ways. You can't just be like, oh my God, they're not watching the 6 o'clock SportsCenter. Like, you have to go after them. You got to innovate. You got to create SportsCenter on Snap, and you got to do things that compel them to engage, because we know they love sports. It's just, you don't want to make it difficult for them to find us.
Yeah. How do you do that? How do you, again, you outside of just ESPN, you're covering the Disney Channel, National Geographic, ABC. I mean, your role now is like more broad. And I remember you said something to me a while ago about now you're at Disney, which is like known for being creative. I mean, the mindset's probably, and I love some case studies on just like fan flow. Like I'm like, oh my God, you could learn so much from Disney and just how they think about the consumer.
Well, even the parks experience. Like, I'm so
the parks, like they make it entertaining to be in line. And I'm like, wow, we could learn so much as an industry if we just studied Disney's approach to, like, you're in line for an hour and you don't want the line to end. Like, that's just crazy. But they've got.
I don't think we want people in line for an hour. But but I'm going to Disneyland this weekend as part of a work trip, and I'm psyched because I haven't been to the parks. None of us have really been to the parks in a couple of years, right?
Yeah.
And I'm so excited to see how they've innovated the experience, but there's nothing like going to a Disney park in terms of the experience. From the time you walk into the gate to the time you leave, it's just like a whole nother world and a whole nother universe. And there's nobody who treats their guests better than Disney. And, as much as we're talking about, the future and virtual experiences and digital and social, there's still nothing quite like an in-person experience. So the in-stadium experience, the in-the-park experience, as much as we're innovating on the marketing side at ESPN, it is all very much about intimate fan experiences too.
Yeah.
Like it sounds silly, but like having an ice cream truck in Las Vegas to give out free ice cream to fans.
Boy.
People love that.
Yeah.
So it has to be, complex sometimes and
totally
digitally savvy. And then sometimes it's pretty basic. Just have people have a good time.
Yeah. Bring the ice cream truck and I'm happy at the end. My kids would be happy. Just sports would be interesting, but yeah, bring the ice cream truck, the physical piece of it.
Who doesn't like that?
Yeah. No, I like that. Again, I wanted to raise Disney in particular. One, just curious, your job is you got all these different channels and different marketing strategies, and you have to make it unique to that audience and how you think about that. But also just to your point, as it relates to just learning from all the different groups under your umbrella, and, Disney just being one that has just knocked it out of the ballpark, like bringing their fans a wonderful personalized experience. And again, how you guys are working together around that. So do you want to add anything around, just again, your job is so interesting to me again, because you're overseeing social media across a broad catalog of these award-winning creative channels, and you got to take the ESPN hat off and put the other one. I mean, tell me how that works, because you got a lot on your plate these days.
Yeah. It's not always simple, right? Because you do have to almost consciously change gears.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it is learning. I mean, that's the thing that got me all excited about the new opportunity, was to continue to learn. And like you said, learn about different fan bases, learn about different brands. So ESPN comes pretty instinctively to me, and I kind of grew up with that brand. And so I just
that's true.
feel like it's a part of me. So now working on the ABC brand and Nat Geo, and thinking about FX and how they stand for being fearless, and, really creating really, really powerful storytelling, it's a learning experience, but then also hopefully I'm bringing some best practices in terms of, like you said, know your audience, really understand what it means to be a brand and a powerful brand, and clarifying brands. Like, I think there's such an opportunity for Nat Geo to do more. They have incredible social media feeds, the most beautiful photography, the most incredible explorers. It's like, how do we bring that to the next generation? Because the magazine is one thing, but there's not a lot of teens reading that magazine right now. So how do we expand that brand and get it in front of more people? Like Free Solo is amazing, right? Watching that movie.
Oh yeah.
How do we bring those kind of experiences more to the forefront?
That was a great movie. Oh my God.
I was like, I think I watched it 3 times, and every time I was like, I hope he doesn't fall.
I was like, man, my safe sport
he could probably hold a plank pose for an hour.
Yeah, no big deal.
Yeah.
No, I love that mindset you have, and that's, I think, why you're good at your job. You're always trying to do the next thing and make those lateral connections. Is there anything that any advice again you would give to an executive listening to this podcast, because you've had such breadth of experiences, over 2 decades at ESPN, which I love, but like, it's not easy to change. It's not easy to think outside the box. It's not easy to make the lateral connections all the time. Is there a tip you have, or something that, you use personally to again, keep growing, keep assessing opportunity around you?
Well, we've always had a mission at ESPN to serve sports fans anytime, anywhere. And it sounds simple, but if you really dig deep, and I won't say unpack, because everyone says, let's unpack that. I won't unpack that for you, but if you really think about that, and you really think about your audience, and again, I'm coming from a marketing lens, but that's really what you're paid to do. You're paid to really think about who are you trying to reach, who are you trying to serve. So if it's a 13-year-old boy who you're trying to get to love SportsCenter, or it's a 15-year-old girl who you're trying to inspire them about this world of sports and show them some role models, or it's a Hispanic man who loves the UFC, whatever it is, like just really, really think about your audience and your fans that you're serving. And how do you do that in all the different ways, whether it's social, whether it's digital, whether it is linear. But I think that's what's made us pretty successful at ESPN, and also obviously at the Walt Disney Company, is really respecting our fans and our guests and just trying to give them the best possible experience. If it's as simple, I know, not to get back to it, if it's as simple as free ice cream at the All-Star game, or it's as complex as 1,000 NHL games on ESPN Plus. But it's, if you could, it's a tall order, but gosh, if you can do those extreme things and then everything in the middle, but it really just does start with really being respectful of your fans and who you're serving, and doing everything you can to understand them. Yeah. I love that. That's what that's what we think about all the time. I'm curious what your perspective on the biggest like behavioral changes you've seen in your fans. Cause again, we nerd out about the fluid fan. We're always talking about, you call them would you call them the next generation, the next gen, the new schoolers? The new schoolers, sorry. What's the biggest like shift in behavior that isn't like obvious that people talk about all the time? Is there anything you're like, you pay attention to in particular? I think I don't know if it's obvious or not obvious, but I think just the fact that anyone under the age of 18 is pretty much getting their news on social. Like Instagram tells you who's getting the new coaching job for the Canadians. Like just a whole nother way of getting information. And it's all on social feeds, and it's nowhere near what you and I did growing up. It's not turning on the news. It's not television. It's not even a website at this point. It's literally what is in your feed and what are you consuming, and that's how you're getting your sense of what's happening in the world. Yeah. So social, 8-10 years ago was like, oh, let's experiment, and it's a fun thing to have, and it's a nice to have. Now it's literally how people get all their information. So you really have to take it seriously. You have to staff it seriously. It's not just something you download to the intern. Like it's a major platform for us. Yeah. No, I agree. That's in the last 10 years, the digital transformation of everything and the handheld device that can get you everything is absolutely, I think, it's why we're talking about all of this right now. It's just changed everything. I guess, shout out to Steve Jobs on some level, that, everything you need is on your phone. Crazy. Yeah. If you were alive, he'd be patting himself on the back. I told you so before anyone believed me. I knew it. Is there any, before we wrap and go into 4 with 4, is there any trend you think people should be paying attention to? Or, I always like to end conversations by giving guests the last word. You have such an amazing career. You've done so much for sports and women in sport, and you're going to continue to do that. I have total faith, and I'm, a huge, I look up to you, Laura. You're awesome. So I want to know what you have to say. Like, what should I be paying attention to? What's on the horizon for the sports industry? Well, I just, it's not a revelation, but it's something, again, I think we learned via ESPNW, like people want to see themselves represented, and see themselves in your content and see somebody like them speaking with them. So again, the more we are more inclusive and the more we diversify our talent, the more we can reach more constituents, not just the right thing. It's good for business. Like a younger talent talking to a teen, and a woman explaining her love of hockey, like Emily Kaplan, and John Butchie Gross speaking to his audience. Like, just really thinking about, again, you can't serve everybody, but at ESPN we try, because we really feel like everybody's a sports fan. So how do you represent them, on different platforms? How do you let people see themselves and feel like they're being spoken with and not at? Yeah. And that's just something to be mindful of. Yeah. I mean, more platforms equal more distribution, equal more sports, equal more visibility. And, to your point of inclusive, diversity and inclusion, having that,
again, yeah, you want to, if you can see it, you can be it. Or you can just simply relate to the person talking. I love that. It's such an obvious, again, like, it's like the ice cream truck. Like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel here. Just let's just open our arms and include more people into the conversation.
It really does get down to it. Just serve your fans and do it to the best of your ability.
Yeah. Sometimes innovation, we talk a lot about tech and, data and looking at like fan behavior and all that. But again, it's sometimes just being a human and recognizing what we all want as people. Yeah, I love that. All right, so now we're gonna wrap. Laura Gentile, who is someone, if you don't know, you need to know, and follow her on I don't know if it's public. I love following your kids on your postings. Your kid, by the way, it's so cute. You're such a hockey mom.
I really just show them eating. It's not that interesting.
I just love it though. I'm there. I have 2 boys, so I'm in a few years I'll be where you are at now. For now, they're skating in my backyard, so I'm not on the road posting photos of them in rinks, but I will be juggling work like you do. All right, so you've talked a little bit about innovation. If you could summarize what innovation means to you, what would that be?
Yeah, well, I take sort of the basic definition. I really look at it as a new idea and a new way of thinking and something that's creative and potentially big. But to me, it doesn't always have to do with technology. I think for example, the Manning cast, it's almost like anti-technology.
Yeah.
It's 2 brothers sitting in their homes on a couch, eating chips, talking about football. There's no real bells and whistles, and half the time they're not even paying attention to the game. No, but it's a big idea though, because that's how fans want to enjoy a game, or that they want to just hear these genius football players provide a little insight or explain a route that they never thought, or a play they never understood. So to me, it is, and everyone's saying it is, one of the most innovative things we've ever done, but it's just an interesting big idea. It's not necessarily technology at its finest, but it's, again, humanizing sports and bringing a new experience to fans. Yeah, I love the way you put that, humanizing sports. Is there someone, you mentioned Jimmy, but is there anyone else in the industry that's the most innovative person that you look up to? Steve Jobs, you mentioned, that would count, but who's someone you look up to in general? Well, I would, just to read, I would say Jimmy, and not, again, to completely be a sycophant, to use a SAT word. Good word there, Duke. But, I like it. He really is open-minded. I mean, you and I have interacted with lots of executives and CEO types, and he's really open-minded about audience opportunities, about serving different audiences, about trying new things, about being really digitally savvy and being really smart on social media. I mean, he's the one who tapped me on the shoulder and said, I'd love you to oversee social media. Like that's just super cool for somebody to ring you up and say that. And then it's a really important platform for us. But I also admire you, Angela. I mean, the Sports Innovation Lab and what you're doing to bring women executives in the sports world together to really solve business problems. It's something we aspire to do at W, and we take a little bit of a different tack. We're trying to be very much fan facing and a consumer facing brand, but you've done what I've always felt like was an opportunity, which is there's so many amazing women now in the sports world, again, whether it's at the NHL or the NFL or just across the landscape. How do we get everybody talking and building our own network and building upon each other's ideas? So I've loved not only what you've done with the lab, but your executive forum and your thank you. I'm honored to have you on it again. Just trying to get more ideas, more thinking, more support, more network to women in particular, but just I mean, that's how the world goes around. So you're a huge contributor to that organization, that network. But people should know, you challenge us to say, hey, what's going on that's new in your company? Because maybe we can build upon it, or maybe we can partner. And it's a simple, basic ask and concept, but it hasn't been done before. And it's really awesome that you've taken that leadership opportunity. It takes a team, right? It takes a team to get things done in life. So why not broaden your team, as I say. But thank you, Laura. I appreciate that. All right. Most innovative company in sports tech. I mean, you can say ESPN if you want, but then you have to really brag, be specific. I will. Okay, good. Let's go. I mean, I talked about how ESPN Plus for us is, one more platform, and the fact that we have 21 million subscribers is really awesome, at this juncture. But I think everything we've done on digital has been equally impressive. The fact that, in October, we had 120 million fans consuming our digital content. Is our highest month ever. Wow. But in an average month, 105 million people come to our digital platforms. It's kind of crazy, because we're still sort of all reflexively looking at what are ratings and how many people are watching.
Yeah.
But when you think about 102 million people coming to ESPN digital platforms, it's enormous.
Yeah.
And so I think we're super proud of that position. And, sometimes maybe we don't herald it enough. We almost take it for granted that people are, using us and consuming us on their phone all the time in our app. But it's really innovative, and we're always looking at that product. And then I think, like I said, social, like the numbers are astounding. The fact that we have 325 million impressions a day on social. 325 million impressions. We just have so many accounts. They're all very healthy. So yeah, no, I just think it's a really interesting place. We've constantly pushed the envelope. We've tried to be first, right? We had a mobile phone before anybody wanted sports on their mobile phone. And some people said it was a failure, but I think we all think it made us much better because we just innovated quickly coming off of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I just think, as much as some people like to position us as, a bastion of the cable, time frame, we really are looking to the future, and we have so many opportunities on digital and social and with Plus.
So with Plus, I think it's over 21 million subs. You've got, if I'm correct, over 21 million followers on Instagram, 39 million on Twitter. You are, you're on LinkedIn. I mean, not that we're all, anyone listening to this is on LinkedIn. You got a presence.
Beyond the followers, Angela, it's just the amount of engagement.
Yeah.
Like, people are engaging with us all day long.
Yeah,
it's not just like liking us and going. They're like all day long,
conversation, which is, I think, is key. It's not just a one way, it's two way.
Yep.
You guys are listening. What about, well, and last question is Innovative Team League Federation, but I want to use this as an opportunity to talk about like all your partnerships, because we didn't even get into that. I mean, there's almost the wealth of, like, we talked about obviously the NHL, the Super Bowl, NFL, you've got everything. Tell me about your partnerships. If you have to pick one, child that you love the most, happy to talk about them, but like, it's just, we'd be here all day if I actually talked about how many places you guys are, because you're everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll go back in history, but like I said, out of the gate with Gatorade was with us from the beginning, and they continue to be an amazing partner. We hope, they join us for the 50th anniversary of Title IX. And again, they are a super innovative company themselves, but Toyota is a company I will always hold near and dear to my heart, because they've been a sponsor of the W Summit for upwards of 10 years. Again, they have always known that women buy cars. They told me this 10 years ago. Women are the decision makers when it comes to the household purchase of cars.
Yeah.
But they didn't quite know how to reach those women in a more targeted way. And, just working with them over the years, and them being behind the W Summit, where we bring so many incredible people together and we talk about big ideas and we inspire each other. That's a company that I really admire, and they've been a great partner to the overall ESPN family as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, we just have so many great partners. And I think what you're doing, like I mentioned with your board, and if we can all kind of work together, like the 50th anniversary of Title IX is coming up. And of course, ESPN wants to be at the forefront, but it would be just really awesome if everyone started working together to elevate these stories and tell more stories and work together on this and partner on it. But it's something definitely to be celebrated and then also built upon.
Yeah. All right. What's then, I can't let you go then. What's the vision for the future of women's sports? I have to ask you now that because I love talking about this all day, but you found, again, as a reminder, Laura Gentile founded ESPNW. You've been thinking about this. You were a college athlete, and you care so much about it. I can, I know, but hopefully everyone can hear it in your voice. Like, where does women's sports go since you're here? Where do we
I mean,
go from here?
I do love starting to like really love and get my head around the model for Athletes Unlimited. I think it's really smart to put that kind of power and that input into the hands of our athletes.
Yeah.
You know, it's complicated, right? To start a league and sustain a league. And the WNBA is now doing an amazing job with Kathy at the helm and talk about partnerships and investors. I mean, she's doing incredible things. But the notion of empowering the athletes to really have a voice in what the league looks like and what the schedule looks like and the format and the competitive scheduling and landscape and amenities and just how to make it work for women. I think that's pretty cool. I mean, you know, we've struggled to create big, powerful women's leagues, and the investment that's required and the vision to stick with it for 10, 12, 25 years, like the WNBA, it's hard. Yeah. But I think if you enable the athletes and you empower the athletes to grow with the sport and to really have a voice, you probably feel the same way. I mean, with ice hockey, like, gosh, you know, if you were helping build that league right after you graduated Harvard, you know, we might be in a different place right now.
Yeah. I hope hockey takes off. We don't have enough time to talk about hockey. But AU, I love the shout out. Kathy Engelberg over at WNBA just raised $75 million. If you didn't hear the news, which is awesome. I actually got to be one of the investors on that. So I believe in the W as well. And Laura Gentile, EVP Commercial Marketing, Disney Networks and ESPN. It's a mouthful, but it just means you're really important and you're doing awesome things, Laura. So thank you for sharing your wisdom, your advice, your insights. Thank you for who you are. Keep doing what you're doing. Your boys are lucky to have you. And just anyway, thank you for being on the Fluid Fan Podcast.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you, everybody out there.
Huge thank you again to Laura Gentile for joining me on the show today. It is always a blast when I get to chat with you, Laura, and share best practices. You've been an absolute pioneer in the industry for over 2 decades. You continue to think differently. And I know you're always thinking about delivering better experiences for the fan. So keep an eye out for the latest content coming out of the W studios, as we talked about. And I'm sure we'll see some innovative marketing campaigns come out across the Disney and ESPN platforms with your name on it. Laura Gentile, thank you so much. I want to close by thanking my producer, Jack Barlow, and my entire team. First class, everyone. You guys are the best. I also want to thank you, my listener of this podcast. You have been amazing. I'm so grateful for all the support. Please show your support by subscribing. Tell me what you like, what you don't like. I'm going to take it to heart because we're going to take a little pause here, reset what we're doing here at Sports Innovation Lab Fluid Fan Podcast. And we're coming back big time around the corner. So we'll take a little break, but the new format of the show, stay tuned. It's around the corner where we're going to continue to talk to athletes and leaders and innovators and those that are thinking about the fan on the next revision of the Fluid Fan Podcast. So stay tuned. Next chapter is around the corner. Thank you once again for everything, and I'll see you next time.